Hello and welcome here again live to the World Crypto Network. To the show, read Rothbard and use Bitcoin. Today we are joined by two fantastic guests again. First, we got Simon. Simon, how are you? Simon, gotta unmute yourself.
I'm here.
How are you doing?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you very much. Doing fine.
Perfect. And we also got Rico. How are you doing, my friend?
Good evening, everybody from France and Paris. I'm doing great, thank you. It's a bit drizzling out. Just finished doing the ABCs of Bitcoin on my channel and over at Consensus RY. If anybody's in the chat listening, go check it out. We covered a pretty long episode. It was on B's for Bitcoin and blockchain. And it's super exciting to think about what's going to be happening. So talking about the fundamentals today, guys, as always, I'm excited to see what's going to happen with this, with Bitcoin.
All right, absolutely. And let's get started with this quote from the book, The Tower of Basel, a shadow history of the secret bank that runs the world. Dum, dum, dum. Looks quite scary, right? Let's get this started with a quote reading. The world's most exclusive club has 18 members. They gather every month on a Sunday evening, 7 p.m. in a conference room, E, in a circular tower block whose tinted windows overlook the central Basel railway station. Their discussion lasts for 1 hour, perhaps an hour and a half. Some of those present bring a colleague with them, but they rarely speak during the most confidential of conclaves. The meeting closes at acid leave, and those who remain retire for dinner in the dining room on the 18th floor, rightly confident that the food and the wine will be superb. The meal, which continues until 11 p.m. or midnight, is where the real work is done. The protocol and hospitality honed for more than 8 decades as faultless. Anything said at the dining table is understood. Is not to be repeated elsewhere. The Bank of International Settlement management works hard to ensure that the atmosphere is friendly and clubbable throughout the weekend. It seems they succeed. The bank arranges a fleet of limousines to pick up the governors at Zurich Airport and bring them to Basel. Separate breakfasts, lunches, and dinners, and organized for the governors of national banks, who oversee different types and sizes of national economies, so no one feels excluded. The central bankers were more at home and relaxed with their fellow central bankers than their own governments. Recall Paul Volcker, the former chairman of the US Federal Reserve, who attended the Basel weekends. The superb quality of the food and wine made an easy camaraderie, said Peter Akos Bob, a former governor of the National Bank of Hungary. The main topic of discussion were the quality of the wine and the stupidity of finance ministers. If you had no knowledge of wine, you could not join the conversation. So that is a fantastic quote, guys. Simon, what do you think about that?
Well, I think it sets the stage for what we're going to talk about today. It's clear, or you see how these people meet in this bank. But the funny thing is that nobody really knows about this bank, the Bank of International Settlements. It's kind of an obscure organization. So today we'll talk a little bit about it and try to shed some light on it and what it does today. So I'm very happy to do that. Thank you.
Oh, yes. As Terence McKenna, I think, once said, is that, there is a dark room, right? A really, really dark room. And we have a light. And we're going to flash that light into that dark room. And let's see if we see any rats there scattering.
Yeah, exactly. And I think we'll start by reading a tweet I wrote a few days ago that kind of summarized my research on the Bank of International Settlements, but we'll talk a little bit more about it because I didn't get to say as much as I would like to have said because of the length of tweets or the restrictions you have. So we'll dive a little bit into the history of the BIS. And so are you ready? Shall we read it?
Absolutely.
Or the restrictions.
Rico, do you want to read this? Go ahead.
No, you guys read it. I mean, I think Simon, the narrator, should read it, or the writer should read it.
Well, my English sucks a little bit, so I would be
No,
glad for you to do
I
it,
can
but I
read
can do it.
No, it's not a problem.
Go
if you
ahead,
want to read
Simon.
it.
Okay, let's start. There's a lot of opinions about what we are fighting against with Bitcoin. Warren Buffett famously called Bitcoin rat poison. So let's dissect the rat. Safe to say, it's not retail banking. Rather, we are questioning the legitimacy of a far more powerful organization, the Bank of International Settlements.
Oh, and look at that tower. Doesn't that look inviting?
It's a bit terrifying, you know. It's actually, it looks very scary. It looks like the control, you know, one of their antennas. Honestly, Simon, this tweet has come up in my research quite often, and I've been doing lots of research on the banks and the regulations of these cryptocurrencies, and there is a new market coming out, and they want in on it, and only because it's messing with their finances. Now you have to realize that the coin market cap, or the market cap of all these cryptocurrencies, is nothing compared to how much these banks have in control. So, but it is a number, but it's not as massive. So they are looking, they're starting to turn their look. And when they're facing this, you guys have to realize everybody that's using this is going to be, you know, the enemy in a sense. So I'm excited for the change in the regulation, but I'm also scared of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that we are maybe unaware of in store. And this is a very good quote from Warren Buffett, because I believe the rats are the ones that have been hiding in the shadows. So I guess let's get into this BIS.
Yeah, I think we'll look at what the BIS has said about Bitcoin. In the past, I've made a few notes so we can talk about it. But let's continue with the tweet. Outside of our space, I mean the Bitcoin space, nobody's ever heard of the BIS. It's an obscure organization operating from a huge building in Basel, Switzerland. Looking into the history of the central bank of central banks, I discovered some interesting things. Founded in 1930, the BIS was tasked to coordinate reparations from the Germans to the Allies. As it got clear that the Germans wouldn't be able to pay their debt, a plan was set up for the Germans to pay reparations until the year 1986. The BIS would coordinate that process. So the BIS had a mandate at that point, and so to coordinate these reparations, that was basically it. And that was also the reason why it has some kind of immunity, which we will dive into later. However, as Hitler gained power and broke the Treaty of Versailles, he also refused to pay reparations, as this was devastating the German economy and people were up in arms. At this point, the BIS had no real purpose anymore and could have been dissolved, but it wasn't. In World War II, the BIS found a new way to do business, a very ugly one. The Germans had the Wesenschutzkommandos, special units tasked to coordinate the captured gold and treasure abroad. They also enforced that Jews couldn't have more than one account and small amounts of cash. The BIS started to accept the gold captured by the Nazis in 1939 in Czechoslovakia. They effectively laundered the Nazi gold and sold them foreign currency to further boost their war machine. It's hard to say how much more death and destruction this financial help caused. After World War II, Charles de Gaulle, together with Russia, demanded that the BIS should be shut down for the criminal organization that it was. Wall Street, however, didn't want that and was able to prevent it. The funny thing is that even if anyone wanted to, nobody could have shut down the BIS. Authorities are not allowed to enter the building, and it's not even Swiss territory. Today, every 2 months, approximately, central bankers of the world gather to discuss and adjust global monetary policy. The BIS is an unelected, unaccountable, and elitist organization. They make over $1 billion profit per year, and guess what? They don't even pay taxes. Nobody questions their power because they're untouchable. This is what we are fighting against. It's not a coincidence that they've been talking a lot about Bitcoin in the past year, ridiculing and demonizing it because they know exactly that there's no place for them in that new system. No place for elitist middlemen fiddling around with monetary policy, destroying lives. So next time someone spins the narrative of the evil retail banks, remind them that we're up against way more powerful players. Don't think this will be easy. The war hasn't even started yet. We're up against people with immense resources, and they won't shy away of using them. So that's it. What do you guys think about that?
I'm just in awe right now. I think everybody in the chat can agree that you have hit such a hard tone in the reality that we live in. Okay, when people talk about the dark, the deep, the control, they're talking about the things that you cannot see. Okay, and that is those who set up these powers. Okay, they don't put themselves out there at all. They do everything they can to stay behind shadow, closed doors. I mean, they're more secret than the Pope. They're more secret than anybody else. Okay, they don't even exist. Okay, you have to look these people up, and in the end, you just get a last name, and it always ends with some banker. And if you follow the money, you are absolutely right. These were the middlemen of World War II, and as I have done tons of research on the creation of the CIA and the formerly 2 presidents from the Bush family have grew up with that kind of lifestyle where their grandfather was using banks to fund World War II, not bonds, but I think just pretty much helping the Nazis as well. So now you have it in Switzerland, this neutral bank, okay, that saw this whole thing directly work with Hitler to make sure that they were paid, and they were not paid. But I mean, these are still dark players, you guys, and this is who he's talking about, the IBS, this Tower of Basel that is literally where the gods who are the evil live, and they're right here amongst us all, and that's where they work. Just like the Federal Reserve in America, this is the same here in Europe. So it's scary stuff, man. Switzerland has got some heavy. They've got a lot of history that people don't know about. It's good to know about this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
exactly. And Rico, you brought up the Federal Reserve, and we too have made a couple of videos so far on your channel, Rico Coin Report, and we have talked about the creature from Jekyll Island, where we do an in-depth discussion about the Federal Reserve and go back to the history of the Fed and how it was founded. So 2 parts so far. The first one to introduce and set the scene, and then the second one to get more into depth with then a crash course on money. Amazing book by G. Edward Griffin. And the same we're going to do today, loosely leaning to this book, Tower of Basel. So, of course, what we're talking about here is a central bank. And a central bank is a entity in the market that is, of course, a bank, right? So it has to do something with money. But more importantly, in the current system, it is a bank that is backed by some government monopoly. So it is the only bank in the market on that level. And it has a complete monopoly, and a monopoly in real economic terms does not mean that there's only one competitor, because everyone has unique wares. Samsung is the only competitor in Samsung products. So does Samsung have a monopoly on Samsung products? No, just the only producer. A true monopoly is if you have government backing in that sense that you can somehow push down new entrants coming to the market. So if new entrepreneurs can enter a market, then it is a free economy. But if new entrepreneurs are somehow prohibited to enter the market and to compete, and that can be done by any form of registration or any form of forced government grants and subsidies, and all these things prohibit some market participants, but they pull up others. And these that get pulled up, these that get all these government benefits, they are then the monopolists. And this central bank of central bankers is the monopolist pretty much above the monopolists of central banks. So each central bank itself has a monopoly, but then the central bank of central bank has a monopoly over all these other monopolies. So this is the top of this pyramid scheme.
Yeah, exactly. And it's rather interesting if you look at how, well, the BIS is owned by 60 central banks. These 60 central banks are shareholders. And to become a shareholder, you have to be approved by a board. So you can't even enter to be a shareholder. You have to be a central bank, of course, because it is the central bank for central banks. So it's totally exclusive, that club. There's no way for you to enter. Yeah. So shall we dive into a few of these tweets and we can discuss them further? I had somehow the tweet got lost, so I have
Which
to.
one?
Yeah, I mean just the tweet. Oh yeah, I got it again.
Okay.
So sorry.
I really think the interesting part here is how this all basically started in World War I and II, because World War I was the first World War, the Great War as it was called back then, that actually made government or that was financed solely by government subsidy and by central bank subsidy through inflation. So that's the first thing that all these warring parties did, was they inflated the money supply so that they could buy weapons, so that they can dig trenches and fight massive wars.
If I may interject really quick before you go into the next part, it just seems to me as the people that have this money and power, they're just handing off the gauntlet to the next person. You know, as in the people who actually have to work for it are handing off the debt. We're all paying for each other's debt and taxes. Literally, other countries are just paying for each other's debt, and no one wants to be holding the holder of the last debt, right? And these banks are doing the same thing, like whether it's London, and this IBS is the middleman. So even these top players have top players, and that's the capstone of it. It's just follow the money, guys. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I just get so annoyed hearing these, but it's good. It's good to talk about this stuff.
Yeah. So one question for you guys. First off, it isn't actually true that Warren Buffett called Bitcoin rat poison. Well, it is true, but Charlie Munger was the first one to call Bitcoin rat poison. But Charlie Munger is Warren Buffett's, I guess, work colleague. They both have. They're both
his lapdog.
Yeah, no, they're both the top. How do you call it? Investors at Berkshire Hathaway. So they manage that huge fund and holding agency, however you call it in English. But do you think that Warren Buffett knows what's going on? Because rat poison seems to me like a phrase that seems to be placed strategically. Or is he just talking shit without knowing what he's talking about? What do you think?
Okay, Max, you know how I'm going to go. So you want to go first?
Go ahead, Rico.
Okay. Honestly, you guys, this is how it's going to be. They know what's going on. They've got their long game. So we are small players in a massive game, and they write the rules, okay? We just get to see them. And if you don't see the writing on the walls, as people are heading towards the, I don't know, I don't want to call them where they're heading, but it's not a good place, okay? That being said, that is a very scary statement, because in a sense, I'm an anarchist in a peaceful manner. I will do everything I can to stay away from commercialism and even fiat and stuff like that. That being said, we are obviously stuck in their control. So if he's calling Bitcoin rat poison, it does put fear into somebody who has to think about both sides, okay? We are using this money. I've seen a lot of regulations and adoption in this last month, this last 2 weeks. I've been reporting about it every single other day for the most part. And it's a good thing, I think, for regulation. But what is he alluding to when he's saying rat poison? Is he saying that they are the rats and or that we are the rats? Because I honestly think that we know who the rats are, but they think that we are, obviously. So it's a hard thing to really put your finger on, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. And I do think that these people, by now, they might at least be listening. I really do think so, because Bitcoin is here. It's not going to go away. The honey badger is here, and it will defend its territory, right? The sewer rat will not be killed. And that's the beautiful aspect of Bitcoin. It is decentralized in every matter, and it is unstoppable. Since January 3rd, 2009, Bitcoin has an uptime of 99.9992%. So not perfect. A couple hours back in 2010 and I think 2013. So Bitcoin is pretty much working, and it doesn't seem to crack down any bit, especially when we all run a full node, right? So get your own full node, and that's the beautiful thing. They now have to realize that this is something that they will have to deal with. And let's just hope that they gave us enough of a head start, so that then, now that they realize that Bitcoin will not go away, and that they will react, maybe harshly, hopefully not, but let's see how it goes. It's going to be interesting if we have built up enough anti-fragility. What do you think, Simon?
Yeah, I actually totally agree. I don't see how any entity now can destroy Bitcoin. It's just grown too big, and I think that's one of the factors that play a role why nothing will ever be the same as Bitcoin, because Bitcoin had this this head start. The Bitcoin started and nobody knew about it. They could mine a chain, and it was totally insecure. It was centralized at the start by Satoshi, and but it grew with the value on the network, and by now the value on the network is safe. If it were not safe, it would have been hacked long ago. So we can pretty much guarantee that 100 billion, I think, is safe. The Bitcoin network can secure $100 billion. Or 21 million Bitcoins, however. Yeah, so I don't think this will go away. And if it goes away, I will be pretty sad.
Yes, that is also the Lindsay effect, which means the longer such a decentralized network has already existed in the past, you might make a guesstimation, right, that it is going to continue just as long, at a minimum. So that is described by Lindsay's law. And so according to that, we could say that Bitcoin will at least go on for 10 years. Now, of course, you never know what is going to happen. There are black swan events. And there are things that are almost have almost no chance of happening, only just this microscopic chance. But if they would happen, it would have drastic consequences. That is the black swan, as defined by Nassim Taleb. And black swans cannot be calculated, and they cannot be adjusted for. They just happen. And especially if you're fragile, if you have this static system, then such a black swan event can completely destroy you. But the beautiful thing is that anti-fragility, a anti-fragile system, it not just is immune to these shocks, to these fragilities, but rather it grows out of them. So the more fragility, the more volatility you introduce into such a anti-fragile system as Bitcoin, the more secure and the stronger it gets. So Rico, what do you think about the anti-fragility of Bitcoin?
I love it. It reminds me of people's will to work, will to fight. And in the Matrix, as I always allude to, because it talks about the trinity of consciousness, it always talks about why do you pursue, Mr. Anderson? Why does Neo pursue? Why, as human beings, do we pursue? We will not be locked up. We will not follow your orders. We will not be binded to your laws and rules. We will find a way. And if it brings shudder and fear, then so it is the first of many. You know, this is the first wave. Blockchain isn't gone, you guys. This whole thing is here to stay. It's adopted. This is finally a number, like a temperature that we can all agree is a good amount of price to go to, you guys. Meaning it's ready. The water is ready. People can get in now. You know, it was too hot, obviously, in December, beginning of the year. And it was obviously somehow inflated, or people were taking really big hits and taking money on it. Now that we finally have regulation, we've got adoption. I mean, if we don't listen to that small voice, then everything that they have been risking it for they'll just keep owning it. I mean, we need it to collapse. Bitcoin is going to help that. I mean, I talked to you about this offline, both of you guys, about how, yes, Bitcoin, if it does go, it's going regulated and people start using it and create their own coin next to it, government-wise, then that's only going to leave still a massive bubble for so much control. I mean, we're living in control. So Bitcoin is just a step towards sovereign money. Okay, that's the biggest step towards you can do anything, sovereign money. Okay, guys, because that creates a sovereign economy. Okay, that gets rid of other monies. There's a reason why Americans had to give up their gold around World War II and weren't allowed to hold on to it. Okay, just after, excuse me. And you know, it's value. You know, and if this is digital gold, then I hope you are supporting it. I hope, you know, you're running a node. I hope that you realize how important this time is, and you don't have to do anything except for adopt this money. That's it. And it brings fear into the IBS, or the IMF, the Federal Reserve, the BIS, the IMF, all these banks that do not want you to get off of their fiat. Okay. And I did a report on this about this island who wants to use cryptocurrency backed by Bitcoin. And the IMF is saying, don't do it. And why wouldn't they do it? Oh, because it would mess up with relations with America. What? Okay, but they're the IMF. Don't regulate other people's relations based off of what kind of money they're using. So in Africa, they can use it. I mean, this is not only blockchain, but Bitcoin. Both of them, you guys. It's a brotherhood of unity, of freedom for humans to use sovereign money. Bottom line, it's our only real shot in the dark. And you said this, Max, earlier. It's like taking a flashlight in the dark and shining it. Let's just see what happens. You know, let's see what's going on really here.
Yeah, I guess it's gold on steroids, right? So, shall we get back to the thread, and I'll dive into one point about the gold that was shipped to the BIS. So, after researching a bit more, I found out that the BIS didn't just sell foreign exchange currencies to the Nazis, with which they could then go and buy stuff. They also disguised the origins of the looted gold by the Nazis. For example, some or a lot of the gold went to Portugal because the Germans or the Nazis needed tungsten for their metal production, because tungsten is a very important part for armor and such stuff. And so the Nazis purchased this tungsten from Portugal via the BIS. The BIS disguised the origin of that gold. Now, the Portugal has now sold off the gold, or most of it, to China, Indonesia, and the Philippines. And it is reported that the amount of gold that was sold to Portugal via the BIS was around 100 tons. So then I came across a statement from a bank official from the Bank of Portugal, Nuno Jonet. I don't know how to pronounce that, but you get it. He said, he says it was a perfectly legal trade. I guess you can take that statement, okay. Then he said, they still have 2 or 3 bars stamped with swastikas in the cellar. And they
just 2 or 3, not
yeah,
more,
just 2 or
right?
3, and they keep them as a curiosity.
Yeah, that is hilarious. Absolutely. That and the funny thing is that they wish they did. They really wish that they had more gold, because gold is quite a useful currency. But oftentimes they just have given it away. There's still, very fortunately, a lot of gold in private people hands, not in America, not in Europe, but especially in countries like India, where gold is everywhere, and they have a huge portion of the amount of gold, and they profited from it being not used as money to get this cheap price. But let's see what happens when fiat monies might collapse, where the gold price then will be headed, with now gold again as an option for being used as a money, and maybe even with digital representations of gold, if that can be solved. So there's a lot of cool stuff also coming for gold. And again, gold is a really good currency. So let's see what will be better in the long run, gold or Bitcoin. But I do not think that these central bank coins, these central bank shit coins, will have any chance competing against such prevalent sound monies.
Yeah, talking about the gold price, maybe you can elaborate on that, because I have a question about that. Maybe one of you knows more. I had a comment in the comment section, and it was a response to another comment that asked if the BIS is a lender of last resort. And the other comment, I don't know his name anymore. Yeah, sorry. He pointed out that the IMF is the lender of last resort for central banks. In a way, I mean, the central banks are lenders of last resort as well, but the International Monetary Fund can step in if needed. And then he goes on about a settlement that doesn't occur over the BIS. According to him, I think the name is a little bit misleading, BIS, Bank of International or for International Settlements, because they do much more than that, or they don't even do that, they do other things. That's the original name. The settlement gets done by central banks and GSIBs, global systematically important banks. These are the banks that do international settlement. And then he goes on talking about the BIS and how it rigs gold prices via naked shorts, paper futures. And I went and looked that up, and I came up, I thought it was a conspiracy, and then I went to look up if I find any evidence about it. And I found a statement by Mr. White. He is one of the officials from one of the committees there. And he said, let me pull that up. He said a number of things. I can read all of it if you want, or just the statement that alludes to the gold rigging. What do you want?
Read it on.
Okay.
If you can send me the link that I can show it.
Oh, that will be difficult because I have it on my phone.
Okay, it doesn't matter. Just read
it. To say it's from a gold box site, so to speak. So just to say it has a pro-gold bias, but this text is from a speech, so it doesn't really matter. And now the Bank for International Settlements, the central bank of the central banks, has confessed to the gold price suppression scheme. The confession of the BAS came last June in a fairly candid speech by the head of the bank's Monetary and Economics Department, William R. White, to central bankers and academics gathered at the BAS's 4th annual conference held in Basel. The speech was provided by Gata this week. Okay. White's speech was titled Past and Future of Central Bank Cooperation, and he said, the intermediate objectives of central bank corporations are more varied. First, better joint decisions in the relatively rare circumstances where such coordination action is called for. Second, a clear understanding of the policy issues as they affect central banks. Hopefully this would reflect common beliefs, but even a clear understanding of differences of views can sometimes be useful. So the central bankers meet there and they talk to each other. Third, the development of robust and effective networks of contacts. Very exclusive. And fourth, the efficient international dissemination of both ideas and information that can improve national policy making. And last, the money quote. And last, the provision of international credits and joint efforts to influence asset prices, especially gold and foreign exchange, in circumstances where this might be thought useful.
That is always the question, right? When is it deemed useful? And that is, the ultimate flawed decision. You give all these people, all this central bank, all this conglomerate of a small group of people. You give them ultimate control, and the question is, what are they going to do with it? Or are they going to use it just, altruistically, without thinking for themselves? Or might they maybe, just maybe, think that they will take a little bit of what they have been given and take it for themselves? Of course they will. And they will also grant favors to friends and family, and the urge to dominate. That is something that is fundamentally driving, and domination in also the economic sense is, of course, all types of financial instruments that are regulated. So any type of course, taxation or any type of inflation, increasing the money supply. Any type of sanctions or legislations or licensing requirements, all types of state interventions, aggressive interventions that prevent you from entering a marketplace as an entrepreneur, of permissionless innovation. That is what is being prohibited. And of course, if you are in the banking industry, there is no innovation. There is no permissionless innovation. It all has to be based on hierarchy, and hierarchy is, of course, ultimately control. So this is the fundamental construct of such a anti-fragile monetary system, and Bitcoin is, of course, the complete opposite, right?
Yeah, I agree. It pretty much diametrically opposes the system of central banking, because so let's talk about how decisions in monetary policy get made. And that's one of the things that's so different to Bitcoin. Decisions are made behind closed doors and in total secrecy, and that secrecy is provided by the state by a contractual agreement. The BAS has, I've read the contract. I could read from it right here a few points. Article 2, freedom of action of the bank. The Swiss Federal Council shall guarantee to the bank the autonomy and freedom of action to which it is entitled as an international organization. Okay, let's skip to Article 3. Inviolability. The buildings or parts of the building and surrounding land, which, whoever may be the owner thereof, are used for the purposes of the bank, shall be inviolable. No agent of the Swiss public authorities may enter therein without the express consent of the bank. Only the president, the general manager of the bank, or their duly authorized representative shall be competent to waive such inviolability. Then they go on. The archives of the bank, and in general all documents and any data, media belonging to the bank or in its possession, shall be inviolable at all times and in all places. So not even just on the property, at all places, no matter where it is. The bank shall exercise supervision of, and it's a funny sentence, and I don't get that sentence, but I'll read it how it says it. The bank shall exercise supervision of and police power over its premises. So I guess if the police enters the premises, I don't know exactly how it's meant supervision. I mean, can the BIS like control the police on the territory? I'm not sure. Supervision can also be just look at them. I don't know. What do you think?
Rico, go ahead.
Okay, sweet, awesome. Well, there's a lot to be said that you just talked about. Let's go back to the gold. The fact that there was so many shorts in this gold, it reminds me of the defacement and coin clipping, but this is on just a massive scale. It just brings it down to the idea, you know, these people are taking, imagine if the world was a coin, these economies, each one, and they were just taking chunks and ripping out the economy and taking it and keeping it in their vault or whatever they're doing with whatever they have. And even if you look at the stocks, I mean, gold has been driven down so harsh, and it had to jump, just kind of like Bitcoin had to jump, and that was driven down. So you have to look at other things as well. The bigger picture kind of affects everything in the long run. But yeah, these guys are the middlemen at the top. It's really kind of annoying to talk about because it just makes you feel kind of sick. But yeah, go ahead, Max. Why don't you go continue?
Right, and the interesting question, as Simon brought up, is how are decisions being made? And as an economist, I'm especially interested in what are the decisions being made for money supply, because that is fundamentally what is important, right? That is what gives us the unique ability as entrepreneurs to calculate what we are going to do with our resources. And further, this. Well, let's just go into it. And now here to first with the Bitcoin money supply and how this is being calculated. And as you can see, of course, here at block 1, it started with 50 new Bitcoin, continued with 50 new Bitcoin every single block. Of course, the first block created infinite inflation. The second block, we had 50 Bitcoin already in existence, added 50 more. That means 100% inflation. The stock to flow ratio is 1. Then we add another block. We already have 100 Bitcoin. We have 50 Bitcoin in existence, 100 Bitcoin in existence. Now we add the next 50. That means the inflation rate now is 66%, where the stock to flow ratio is 2. No, sorry, 0.5, and so on. So as we can see, after 210,000 blocks, this block rewards halves. And again, after 210,000 blocks, which is roughly 4 years, it halves again. So not only will we mine half of the blocks in existence within the first 210,000 blocks, but then in the next 210,000 blocks, we will have the next 50% of the total Bitcoin that will be left to create. And this will continue until eventually we will hit 0. And the most beautiful thing about this chart is that currently we are here, right? We are here between block 420,000 and 630,000 at block 500 something thousand. And We already, of course, we know the history of the Bitcoin money supply, but we also know the future. And that is unique. That has never happened. To know the future of a money supply is so incredibly unique because it gives you as the entrepreneur the absolute certainty, the validity, because you prove it with your own node, that the Bitcoin money supply will be exactly at which block number. To the Satoshi, you will know it and you will prove it. And this gives you ultimate tools for calculation, which is, of course, a beautiful to use as an entrepreneur. So Simon, what would you say about that?
Yeah, I agree. And to be clear, this monetary policy that you just showed, the graph, that policy could theoretically be changed if we change the rules of the protocol, the consensus protocol. But the difference between central banks and Bitcoin is that the decision making is it takes place in secrecy, in total secrecy, and the result is some arbitrary monetary policy. And with Bitcoin, the decisions take place in the open, in the public domain, and everybody can participate. And the monetary policy is an emergent property of consensus between the participants. Yeah, exactly. So that's a key difference in how the monetary supply and all of that works out.
It sounds like participation, it sounds like all for one and one for all. We all have to be a part of it. And in order to make the system sound, we have to run nodes. We have to tell people about it. We have to ask to be paid for it in it. We have to be talking to people about it. We have to wake people up. We have to make it normalized to be using Bitcoin. And we have to use it quick. We need to educate ourselves. And this is just the first step in acknowledging the use of cryptocurrency and the most sound cryptocurrency that's been ever recorded. The first one, I hate to say it, but it's so symbolic, and it's just like, we needed this. We've been needing this for so long, and somebody left this. They left this without having to take the glory and the money and the fame. They didn't ask for this. They gave it to us. That's what we're talking about. And this bank is just a huge, disgusting, deep, dark conglomerate of control, and everybody's got their hand in the cookie jar, and everybody's coin clipping the economies and destroying the gold price and making people hand over their gold and controlling wars. And we're funding the wars with the pay in taxes, okay? And by holding the fiat, we are actually kind of the givers of the crime, It reminds me of the idea of getting off plastic, okay? Just because the idea of like, you're no longer using this, okay? You as a consumer, you're not taking, I don't want to blame the consumer because it's not the consumer. It's obviously the distributor's user, but the banks and these governments can't be trusted, and they are distributing, this money. It's just crap. It's just garbage. And Bitcoin is you and me. It's your moms, your pops, your other companies that believe in this stuff. So this is exciting. This is super exciting, but it's actually also scary because this is making them to look over their shoulder to make them realize this is a race that, who knows to see who's going to win this race, the adoption or the control.
Perfect. Yes, absolutely. And then, to compare this, Bitcoin's unrelenting money supply and inherent unchangeability because of, the strong Bitcoin consensus. We see the gold money supply doing the complete opposite. It's going in the wrong direction. It used to be low. It was a flat curve. Now it's exponential. This is Bitcoin, but the wrong side. Bitcoin has started up here at block 0 and has moved over there. And this was 0 Satoshis, and this is 21 million Bitcoin. So this is the same chart, but flipped upside down. So clearly something is up here. Something is going wrong. And that is what always happens, guys. That is what always happens. You could, for example, right here. As you can see right here, where money dies, Same thing happens with fiat money, the Deutsche Reichsmark, where after World War I, here, as Simon said in the tweet, they started printing lots and lots and lots of fiat. And eventually it was so much that they literally had to push it down the drain. It's the exact same concept. It's happening all over again. There is no fundamental difference to what happened in Weimar Republic, to what happened in Zimbabwe, to what happens currently in Venezuela, and to what will happen to the US dollar and what will happen to the euro, is that this type of hyperinflation, which is of course what it is, necessarily leads to a huge decrease in the price of the currency, in the value of the currency. And of course, this is the complete opposite happening in Bitcoin.
Yes, exactly. And I had a controversial thought about this, relating to this today. I think you'll kill me if I say that.
I might, be careful.
Yeah, but I'll turn it around. So I thought about Bitcoin core devs a little bit like central bankers in the sense, wait for it, in the sense that they have the power to make changes to the protocol, which then could change the monetary policy. And secondly, the other thing that's the same is that they have a huge responsibility. If the core devs make a mistake, it can devastate the system, much like the central bankers. If they impose some new policy and they do it wrong, get it wrong, it could have a huge impact. But that's the two differences. But now no, that's not the differences. Sorry, that's the how do you call it in English? You know what I mean. The difference.
It's the contrast.
Yeah. The difference, however, is that you don't have to run that monetary policy that the core devs, the central bankers, give out. You can run a totally different version if you want. And you can't do that with traditional fiat money. You are basically a hostage of that system if you can't get your hand on any other form of money. And the second part that's different is that the discussions around these monetary policies are done in the open, in the public domain, with Bitcoin, with the Bitcoin core development, and opposed to the central banking decisions on monetary policy. Those emerge from total secrecy. So I think those are the two key differences. Yeah, what do you think?
I think you're right on par. I actually think you actually went over something that's very massive that the audience should hear. And I understand what you said because you said it earlier, but he's talking about if these banks implement some kind of altcoin or some kind of protocol and they go along the side, and if you use them by choice. Okay, no one's telling you have to use them or to run their node, to mine their coin. Just by using them, you're adopting it. They don't need us to, in a sense, mine it. They just need you to use it. So if you're using Bitcoin and everybody already is, then you are helping. And if you're using B-Trash, then you're just helping get trash all over the road, and then it's making it harder for the people who are trying to get to this sound economy faster. Okay, he's saying if you're using these projects and you don't believe in them, then you're just wasting everybody's time. Okay, every single person that's investing in these, unless you're just getting more Satoshis or exchanging them for, you know, the rips and curls of betting, that's cool. Gamble it up, use it up. I don't care. But point in case, guys, this is sound money, and it's at your hands. It's at your hands, and you could waste it away in projects. I'm so sorry, but I just got a up feed on Sludge Feed. Ethereum just spiked, I think 18% or 14% on the shorts, and I have the thing up here, but it's like, I don't know. I just kind of feel bad for all these projects that people are like realizing that, honestly, it's backed by somebody, and I don't use Ethereum. I've traded it and whatever, but at this point in case, guys, it's not doing so well, and you have to be able to walk away from things that are just projects and they're backed by somebody, okay? Because not because of the person at all, but the fact that there's always that, just like on the platform, like when a node is being, or a transaction is being processed, it's considered, it can still be considered evil if it tries to change what it's trying to do. And if people are trying to bring good ideas, but then they just back out, then they're not doing what they were trying to do in the first case. They've changed, okay? They've done the, I can't remember the theory that it's called, but it's a gaming theory. When you have a node that tries to change another one and the other one doesn't, it continues and it doesn't acknowledge it. That's, if you know what it is, Max, that'd be awesome if you could jump in. But that theory, you know, with the Byzantine protocol and the Byzantine problem, and that's what makes Bitcoin so beautiful, because it has to take the consensus, and if the consensus is being attacked, then you know, the protocol is to not read that, not to, you know, go on with the hash, not to pronounce it with its nonces. So yeah, all the technical stuff. But what I'm saying, you guys, is if it doesn't agree, and it's not sound money, and it's not sound that these people are putting out these Ripple and all these other crap coins, then in a sense, you're just wasting more time when you should just adopt Bitcoin. Easier said than done. Easier said than done. Big red pill, excuse me.
Oh, absolutely. And of course, the most beautiful thing about Bitcoin, in my opinion, okay, no, sorry. Saying that the most beautiful thing in Bitcoin is really a tough thing to say. But one of the beautiful things in Bitcoin is, in my opinion, it's anarchy. It is really pure anarchy. And of course, on my website at towardsliberty.com/anarchy, you will find here a link to then the Google Drive. Yes, sorry, I'm using Google. But this is really convenient for collaborative work. I actually thought about forking that over to GitHub, so might be doing that soon. The thing is that anarchy in Bitcoin fundamentally means that you can, there is no leader, there is no one to follow, there is no king, there is no king over all of us. We are all equal peers on the network. We can all run a full node. Nobody is stopping us from doing that. And on that piece of hardware, we can run whatever software we like, right? Because it's our piece of hardware. We actually have ownership in this piece of hardware. And that's something that Stefan Kinsella and I talked a lot about in our discussion, which was fantastic. But you can have physical ownership and law ownership over this hardware. And the piece of software that you put on there is completely up to your choice. And you could, for example, put something like this here, like at github.com/btc1/Bitcoin, which is Jeff Garzik's implementation of Bitcoin. It's actually quite a bit old. So last commit in 2017. Of course, he stopped running that because, you know, it was kind of a joke. And it was forked off the real Bitcoin, which you can find at github/Bitcoin/Bitcoin. Every single line of code that you run on this hardware is available here. This is Bitcoin. This is the Bitcoin core implementation. But you could change anything and everything. By the way, last commit was 4 hours ago. So when saying that Bitcoin core is centralized, I don't even know who that guy is, just or who made that commit. But there are 575 contributors, 18,000 commits just over the last couple months. So come on, this is amazing. And you could theoretically change anything and everything in this code. Nobody is forcing you to do anything. You simply do it, and nobody can stop you. And this is what is fundamentally different, because with a central bank, there is no such thing as a source repository. There is no such thing as open communication and fair distribution and access to information. No, there is a lot of occultism, hidden knowledge that is not to be meant to the public, like the money supply, which oftentimes is not even published correctly anymore. And of course, when you are in Bitcoin, you know that money supply is important. And you do not know the correct money supply of the US dollar or the euro. It's impossible. There's too much fracturing, too much fractional reserve, and it is completely intransparent. It's opaque. And Bitcoin is, of course, the complete opposite.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I thought about that worried me in some sense that came up when I read into how the meetings go with the central bankers at the BIS. So these central bankers of all over the world, well, not from all over the world, only from, I guess, the biggest banks, central banks, or the countries that are worthy of going there. These 60 bankers of these central banks, they go there and they talk. But there's different levels of meetings, so to speak. There's the level of the G10, the top 10 countries, economically speaking, and they have separate meetings. So the less economically powerful economies get pushed out of that. Then there's a second lower meeting, and basically, and that's also mentioned in the book in a funny way, the central bankers from the low tier central banks, they have to go and scour the earth at the dinner for information because they get excluded. So it's not as if these central bankers are all peers or equals. They're not equal. And that shows in monetary policy decisions. So the top economic powers, of course, overrule the lower ones. And then I thought about how that would act out in Bitcoin, because to make sure your monetary policy of choice is enforced, you need to run a full node. But obviously that comes with some cost. Not a lot if you run a Raspberry, but it's still some cost. And we're talking about these economically less powerful countries with poor people. And they need to have the power to run a full node. Because if they cannot run a full node, because it's too expensive, they will be excluded from the policy decisions the same way they are excluded in the central bank policy decisions. So the cost of running a full node has to be low. Not only for that reason, it's a lot of other reasons which have been discussed 1,000 times, but I think that is a point that doesn't get brought up as much and doesn't get brought up in a context of central bankers and how they do their policy.
Participation, right? I mean, running your own node, participating, using it, practicing it, preaching it, sadly. I mean, we're not saying go be religious, but in a sense, your money is what makes you use it. Every single day you're using this money and they're backing it up. So absolutely. Spot on, man. I mean, keep going.
Yeah, that is fundamentally what it is all about. And maybe just as a little shout out to a website that I can highly recommend, really something on the side, is of course the LibBitcoin is a huge toolkit for C++ Bitcoin development and applications. It's an amazing database and repository of tools by Eric Voskuil. So amazing product here. And he has in the Bitcoin or github.com/libitcoin/libitcoin, and here on the wiki, he has an amazing wiki by Eric Voskuil about everything, not just here about LibBitcoin and how the RC channel is, but also about developer documentation. So really high level, in-depth discussions about this stuff. And what I really enjoy, because although Eric is a fantastic coder, he is also a fantastic economist. And he talks a lot about crypto economics in a really beautiful way. So right here, you have a bunch of amazing resources. For example, the reverse currency fallacy. And that is something that, of course, comes up when talking about the Bank of International Settlement. And His basic argument here is that people often think that Bitcoin can be used as a reserve currency, so that Bitcoin will be owned by a bunch of banks, maybe several of them, but maybe only one, and that it will only be a reserve, and that these central banks will then use or leverage up upon this Bitcoin. But just his conclusion is that it is an error to conflate a reserve currency with a settlement layer. He's talking about Lightning here. Layering preserves the key security aspect of decentralization, which works against debasement, while backing is full abandonment of this protection. It is very possible for Bitcoin to be held by national treasuries, but not for it to be predominantly a reserve currency. People must trade with it for it to be secure. And only, and I repeat, only when you run a full node do you fully trade with Bitcoin, do you fully own Bitcoin. Even though I don't think you can say you own it, but at least you fully control it, right? You have full access to it. And I can highly recommend this entire wiki of amazing content by Eric Voska.
Please go ahead, Simon, if you want.
Yeah, sorry, I was just looking for a chart. But yeah, what you said, I'm sorry.
No, take your time. So I was just going
to continue. I'm looking for something.
Cool. So I was just going to say, I mean, this is the central bank of all central banks. They're the ones who are okay with taking each other's debt and laundering it into some kind of project, or creating a new, I guess they would say in Wall Street, creating a new bond, a new IPO that's going to do something great. They're just going to sell it to somebody else. They're going to sell the debt up into somebody else. And they're okay funneling all that money, billions of dollars. They're okay with it because war means good for them. When there's no wars, they're not making money. Okay, notice that. There's a history on, if you go to this ibs.org, it's quite interesting, actually. It gives a kind of a breakdown. I don't think it's actually by them. So I think it's somebody who created this website. And it talks about the history of the IBS. And yeah, when war is not good, they are not making money. So they need war. They need unstable currencies that they can control. They need unstable economies where they can control. And yeah, it's just, they're not into sound money. And that's too bad. You know, if we can take control of the entire adoption and international use of this, it sounds scary. But if everybody can get on Bitcoin, we'd all be on the Bitcoin standard, okay? Get that book. It's a good one, guys.
Yeah, exactly. I was just looking for a chart I came across recently on Twitter. I think Nick Szabo posted it. And I thought it was really fascinating, if you look at that chart, how the income has changed in the recent years, since the 1950s, roughly. You see the top 1% of the earners, how much they got in cycles when the I'm blacking out on the terms in English, but when the market went up, how much of the income gains they received, and how much the 99% received. And in 1950, it was basically the 99% got 99%, and now the 99% of the people only get like 5% of the income gains. And it just goes to show that something must be broken somewhere. And if it isn't fixed, I think we will have huge problems in the future, because there's other political factions, like, let's say, the hard left, the communism, the commies. And they will come with a radically different solution than we are. They will come with let's tax everyone more. Let's let the state fairly distribute the money to everyone so we don't have the problem that you see on the chart, they will come with these suggestions, and they already are. And if we look into the past, we see that this is a horrendously stupid idea. It has resulted in massive death all over the world. So we need a better solution than that. And I see Bitcoin as part of that solution. Maybe not the solution, but a big part of it. What do you think?
Oh yes, absolutely. And that is what fundamentally happened here, right? This was after the Second World War, where again they printed a lot of money to repay and to rebuild. Because if you think that after war or during war that the economy grows, well, think again. You're blowing up stuff. You have to rebuild that, and rebuilding that has to happen, eventually. And if you finance that with inflated money, this means that the Cantillon effects will kick in. Because it is fallacious to think that once you increase the money supply, that just all of a sudden everyone has twice as much money in his own wallet. This is not how money is being created. Of course not, because that would be kind of fair, not really, would still be a hassle. But this in the current incumbent system, it works that only a few people receive the money first. And these people are, of course, banks, the Bank of International Settlement, upon others, all types of retail banks, the financial sector in general, but also the governments, of course, because banks buy government debt. That is the first thing that they do, according to Keynesian economics. That's how to introduce new money to an economy, create new money out of nothing and give it to the government. And steal it and demand it back from people in the future. It's fallacious. And what this, of course, fundamentally creates that these people who control the early receivers of new money that are being created, they get richer and richer and richer and richer. And eventually, they will end up controlling everything because they print money out of nothing, hand it out to people, and demand it back in the future. And in the meantime, they get goods and services for that. Well, of course, if you can print unlimited money to buy stuff with it and demand even money back in the future, that is a double trick, so to say, which will ultimately, of course, lead to this kind of outcome.
Yeah, exactly. And wasn't it Rockefeller that said that famous quote about, I don't care who rules the country, I just give me control over the money and I'll control the country. Wasn't that him?
Yeah, I believe he said, he who controls the money controls the country. And it's absolute. With control of the money, you have control of the people. You can wage your wars the way you want them. You can make people think one thing or the other. You own the media, you own the companies, you own everything. You intentionally just own the people. And if you want to oppress them and keep them at this mind-buzzing rate where they have to go to work and they can't figure out what's going on, really can't get past, the mind-meltingness that the world is falling apart, but in a good way. We need chaos, we need anarchy, we need radicalism. That's what Bitcoin is. So that's why we're here. And I'm excited. These late night chats for us in Europe, it's great. But it's even more so important for every one of you Americans listening, because you guys are liberated. I mean, in a sense, you can hold guns, you can start your own company very easily. I mean, Europe is very controlled in a sense. You can't say everything you want. And just living here, it's a lot different. There's a lot more, there's different rules, and we need to all unite in this idea that it takes participation. It doesn't matter how much you want to participate, but the more, the better. Okay, it's going to keep it going. This is the revelation, you guys, and they don't want you to see this, because you take away their money and you take away their power. Okay, you take away their power over you by just deciding not to use their money anymore. And when I saw this chart, I felt like I got hit by just a big beam, of energy, of just sadness, because you're right, 99% of the world, we work so hard, and you know what you get? You get taxed. You get nothing. You don't get good roads, you don't get clean air, you don't get good water, you don't get good food. It's all just destroying you from the inside out. And now you have Bitcoin, they don't want you to have this. They're going to do everything they can to implement things that they can control the midst of it. They want to even just get in the nitty gritty. Okay, I did a report on this about this new board that's being implemented in. It's a new lobbyist board called Blockchain Association in Washington D.C. and it's got 5 different very big people in the world of cryptocurrency, like Coinbase, Circle Group, some other ones. It's over at CoinDesk. You guys can check it out, but it's called Blockchain Association, and they're lobbyists. So everybody wants in on this, and this is all happening within the last month. You know, the Winklevoss twins, they've got their patent. When you know there's money in patent, I mean, Circo owns patents, okay? Circo is based in the UK, okay? So the entire patents in America are owned by the United Kingdom, okay? They own that. It's a company, and the patents mean that they own the information on all of the technology, and they can do whatever they want with that. You know, they can say you can or cannot use this. I mean, literally, you guys, they own the money, they own the companies, they own every single, you know, they're trying to get into the politicians. They want to have everybody's control. And so Bitcoin gives you a chance to say, no, I don't care how much your fiat is worth. I don't care how dirty it is or if it burns or it doesn't. I've got Bitcoin, and it's going to get us through this darkness. It's going to get us to the light. So it's all about you guys too. It's literally about you guys. It's not just about us, because we're already there, and we're all striving. Like you and I are trying to figure out, Simon, just how to start getting paid in it and stuff, where obviously Max has a little bit more of a niche on it than you and I, but we came to the Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market around the same time as we had talked about earlier. So I feel kind of like an aside as a peer to you as well. Whereas I look up to Max because he always gives me good insight on my research as well. So it's nice to go to liberty.com. That's a really good, towards liberty.com. Check out the website.
Yeah, we'll definitely check it out. And I'm really glad that I found some people to talk about this because I haven't had the chance to talk about this to anyone really. So yeah, that's really nice. So
Oh yes, welcome to Bitcoin Twitter.
Well,
it's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah. Well, I was on Bitcoin Twitter a bit longer, but not long. I mean, I think April of this year. A shout out to Stadicus3000 on Twitter. He's a great guy. He's also Swiss, and he does these great. This great Lightning Raspberry guide to set up your own Lightning node, and he helped me tremendously to understand more how that whole setup works. Did his guide, got my full node running, and with Lightning on top. And then I texted him because I saw he's Swiss. So I was kind of interested and texted him and had a small back and forth. And then he said, well, join Twitter. And I didn't know Twitter really. Didn't see any point in going there because I had some bad experiences on in Facebook cryptocurrency groups, which we could get into. But yeah, another disaster if you ask me. The cryptocurrency group from Julian Hosp, his name is, around 40,000 members or something, and they have this group, and it's just a shit show really. Thousands of multi-coiners, and well, I got kicked eventually because I called out some people.
That is the accomplishment.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, they wanted to appoint me as a mod because I seem to have a sense of how this stuff worked, and yeah, well, I probably effed it up.
If I can say,
I'm not sad.
If I can say anything to everybody listening and to you, Simon, and to all my peers, there's going to be so much waste of time you can do online with these crypto groups, okay, guys, with these altcoin groups. Everybody's pumping and dumping their coins and just pumping them, on these Telegram things. I always get signed up on Telegram. I'm like, what am I doing in here? And honestly, guys, there's just so much waste of time. I mean, if you're going to really invest your time into something, go read about it. Go look up who's doing this, and actually go look at the white pages and see where their money's really going. Follow the money or follow the crypto. But all these altcoins, you're absolutely right. We said earlier, Simon, we could just be, it's more inflated fiat cryptocurrency. It means nothing as of now, so Bitcoin is sound because you have to participate. It's decentralized. It's got all of its protocols in line to keep the consensus from being attacked, and it's doing well, you guys. It's doing extremely well, but it needs you more than ever now. Like literally, this is like call to arms. And I mean, I talk to a lot of people who don't know anything about it, and that's like really hard sometimes to grasp. But then at the same time, my peers, you guys listening, you have to also realize this is your due diligence now. It's your choice and it's your decision to take the responsibility to get this thing going, okay? And yeah, you're gonna waste a lot of time in these groups. I recommend staying off Facebook. That's probably the worst.
But I have to add something. They at least try to have some sort of good group for newbies, but the result was just terrible. They tried, you know, but yeah, what well, yeah, you said it. Pumping. Well, they forbid pumping, but what's the new coin that's gonna make 100x, and you know how it goes. But one key point, which helped me tremendously, was that someone posted the University of Nicosia MOOC there, and I thought, yeah, why not? So I got that idea from that Facebook group. So if I wasn't in that Facebook group, I probably wouldn't be chatting to you now. So it had some merits.
And absolutely, this is a really, really nice introduction class. The University of Nicosia Blockchain Initiative. There is a free, massive open online course as an introduction to digital currencies. Guess who the professors are? The one and only Andreas Antonopoulos, and joined by Antonis Polemetis. Greek names.
Polemetis.
Amazing course. I did it myself as well. Got a certificate for it on the Bitcoin blockchain. Proud owner of that. And Andreas is, of course, a great teacher. We all know him. I hope we all watch his content. And this is really a great course, and already 22,500 plus students. Fantastic, and glad that you joined in, Simon. And no, the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is that we can walk away from all this central bank stuff. We can use something else. We can use amazing technology like Lightning. By the way, the new Lightning app is out. Here at blog.lightning.engineering, we have a blog post by Tancred Hayes talking about the new wallet design by Lightning. And guess what we are going to discuss next on the Open Source Everything show? Absolutely, we're going to check up some more Lightning stuff. That is nice. But what we will also continue to do is check out the Wasabi wallet. This wallet is really a fantastic privacy-focused wallet that will protect your privacy. And this will be really, really, really important. You know, to make sure that you are being protected against financial warfare, which we are ultimately up against. You can protect yourself by running a full node, by owning your own keys, and or by controlling your own keys. And you should, of course, also try to protect your privacy, because if people know your Satoshis, then they might come and take it. And they can, but you have to defend yourself.
Okay, well, on a side note, completely spontaneous, I just got some news update in the chat, since we like to check in on the chat. So us in Europe, we've just got an Article 13 passed. So if you guys do memes, you're not allowed to do memes anymore, I guess. European Parliament has voted 438 votes to 226, with 39 absence, that they will know the reputation even more controversial, earning itself the reputation of meme killer. It would require web giants. So we're not allowed to put like songs, images, videos with filters on them, or these links that are super quick. It's quite interesting to know that. It's that's sad, but yeah, thank you, Audio Video Tweaker, for that. I appreciate that. But yeah, so there's no more memes allowed in Europe. Sad. Well, they'll get Bitcoin, and then we can just put it on the blockchain or something.
Well, does this mean that Dogecoin now has to be shut down?
Maybe, you never know. And then all these other coins have to shut down too, then, because a lot of these are memes, right? Oh, who knows?
I think people will find a way, to be honest. Post memes on the Bitcoin blockchain or whatever. So let's get back to the BAS and just talk quickly about what they do today, because I wasn't able to cover that really in my thread, or I didn't. And I think that's rather important to know what they actually do now. So I listened to an interview with Claudio Borio. He's the head of monetary economics of the monetary economics department now. The statement I read about the gold fixing was from the previous head of monetary economics, Mr. White. So Claudio Borio talked a little bit on a podcast about what the BIS does today, and I wrote some things down. So, like I said, the BIS is owned by 60 central banks. They are shareholders. They host central bank committees. That's one of the important parts. That's where they go to discuss things. One is the Basel Committee. They set regulations for the whole world. That's the Basel 1, 2, 3 regulatory frameworks. And we can, of course, go quickly into what these frameworks are. The Basel III regulatory framework that was set up in recent years after the financial crisis of 2008 basically consists of requirements for banks to hold more minimal capital liquid asset holdings. They need to have more liquid asset holdings in case of a bank run, like, for example, in Cyprus, Greece. So I guess most of you know about what happened in Cyprus, but we can go very briefly into it. There were two big banks in Cyprus, the Popular Bank and the People's Bank. And they both lent money to the state, which then wasn't able to pay back that money. And then the crisis happened, and this got apparent, and so people wanted their money out of the bank. But of course, the banks didn't have enough liquid assets to pay people out. So people had restrictions, like they could only get like $60 a day out of the bank, the ATM. And on top of that, probably way worse, was that the Popular Bank, the second biggest bank, went down. So everyone lost everything over $100,000 dollars, or whatever the currency. Of course, it's not the currency there, but euros, of course. They use euros. Everything over 100,000 euros, which isn't insured, was lost from companies, from individuals, from everyone. And the largest bank, in that bank, people lost 50% of everything over 100K. So the consequences were immense. And the ECB, the European Central Bank, only bailed them out, in quotes, with 10 billion euros. But they imposed these rules for the people there, in which they suffered greatly. And the ECB could have bailed Greece and Cyprus out easily. It would have just been a rounding error to print that money. But, and that is what would actually happen in such a case, normally, when you have a lender of last resort, a central bank of your country, of your jurisdiction. But the people of Cyprus didn't have that. They were bound to the ECB. And the ECB doesn't want to set a precedent, because if they bail out the people of Cyprus, then the Italian people will come once they run into a financial crisis and demand that the ECB bail them out as well. So the ECB set a precedent to not bail them out. So there was actually a bail-in, not a bail-out. So the people lost their money, which is rather unusual. So it's not a coincidence that the people in Cyprus are pretty opposed to the system we have right now, and why the University of Nicosia is so, how do you say, forcing the education on that topic.
Oh, absolutely. And just today, I watched this beautiful piece on government propaganda at at the government TV station, and it was talking about Deutsche Bank and that it was still in a crisis, which is of course correct. But what they said that it was still in a crisis because it was not bailed out. It was not bailed out by the government, and that's why it is still in a crisis, and that's why the stock market is plummeting, which is quite hilarious. So this is really crazy to think that it is good to bail out a bank and to give them unlimited money and unlimited control after they already taken it, and it is good according to them because otherwise they cannot become even bigger and even more conglomerized. So now they are already talking about merging Deutsche Bank and Commerzbank so that we only have one bank in Germany, which is of course fantastic, right? Further centralization, that's what we need. So quite interesting how this all is playing out.
Yeah, exactly. And so upon this crisis, the BIS, to get back to the BIS, imposed a regulatory framework called the Basel III. And like I said, they strengthened the requirements for liquid asset holdings to reduce the risk of a bank run, which of course is still pretty huge. Banks had to have a minimum of risk-weighted assets of 2% before 2008. Now it's 4.5%. So it's not that big of a difference. It's not like nothing can happen anymore. But yeah, it was their conclusion that was sufficient. So that's one of the biggest things that this new regulatory framework, Basel III, imposes on the commercial banks all over the world. They have to have more risk-weighted assets and more equity capital. So to jump into what the BIS does today, like you may have noticed so far, they introduce regulatory frameworks, but they also host these committees on different things, like I also mentioned before, the committee on the global financial system, the committee on payments infrastructure. And Claudio Borio said they look at parts of the global financial system. Yeah, I mean, they only look. It's a rather harmless way of putting it. So they host these meetings for the central bankers, and they produce statistics and research for these central bankers to come to conclusions, and they are, of course, sort of a think tank themselves. With these research departments. The question is, isn't there a conflict of interest? Of course, because if you give out the statistics and the research on which the central banks operate, you are thwarting the thwarting the way the central banks will enact policies. And of course, the BIS is also does traditional banking services. So they have an interest in making money, and maybe that interest will spill over to the statistics in some sort. And just to quote my teacher from years ago, she said, never trust a statistic that you haven't manipulated yourself.
Yes, very, very true. And of course, that is trust is fundamentally what the system is built upon. And Audio Video Tweaker mentioned in the chat that Deutsche Bank holds the biggest derivatives book on the planet, and that is true. And fundamentally, derivatives are all about counterparty risk. If Deutsche Bank goes bust, that means that all these derivatives are losing their trusted third party. which is, of course, the complete opposite of what Bitcoin is all about. So Deutsche Bank is saying, trust, but don't verify, please. Bitcoin is saying, oh, no, 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 no. Don't you please trust us, never ever. Verify yourself, run your full node, own your own keys. That is the fundamental different perspective and philosophy of these two monetary systems.
Yep. Yeah, Deutsche Bank, I don't know what to make of it. I guess we would have to need to talk to you more. But I just found out today that they were fined. No, they were not fined. They paid for a settlement case about rigging the gold price. They paid 60 million, but that was some time ago. That's not recent. So yeah, they're involved in some gold price fixing stuff as well as the ECB and other banks, which I came across when I went in to research that. So the mission statement of the BIS is to try and help to further financial stability and corporations of central banks. That's basically their mission statement. So I found it rather interesting as well that Claudio, he said something interesting. He said that the BIS thinks that that the global financial system hasn't got a sufficiently strong monetary anchor. And then I thought, well, come on, Bitcoin is sufficiently strong, I guess, but it's also interesting because it's so durable and anti-fragile. And couldn't Bitcoin maybe be that anchor he's talking about, but he's too blind to see? What do you think?
Well, again, there goes the question if Bitcoin is going to be a reserve currency. And again, I direct you to Eric Voskuil's amazing wiki on Bitcoin. But what I think is that, yes, Bitcoin can be used as a layer, but not necessarily as a reserve. Because as a reserve means that you have Bitcoin in a safe somehow, maybe a multi-sig wallet, maybe a time-locked wallet. And then you issue a second token, something external to Bitcoin. And you somehow link this to Bitcoin. But this is no longer Bitcoin, right? You have this new token, you have this new something that is not Bitcoin. It is an external token that is being introduced on top of a true Bitcoin. That is a reserve. A layer is, for example, Lightning. Would be that you have, yes, a Bitcoin smart contract, the hash time lock contract, right? The time element in the Lightning Network, plus a 2 out of 2 multi-signature. And you use this, but you do not put on top of that another secondary token, something external, something other than Bitcoin. But what you are directly handing out is certificates, not certificates, but control rights over these Bitcoin in the state channel of a Lightning Network payment channel. So there's the fundamental difference here between a layer and a reserve.
Yeah, and if you, sorry, Rick, did you want to say
No,
something?
it's great. I was just going to say, it's actually absolutely right. It's a storage of value right now. I don't like spending my Satoshis. I like to hodl them, even if, I get a good deal on something. But absolutely. If you put something along the side of it, it is no longer Bitcoin. It's something along the side of it, okay? It's no longer Bitcoin. And I think that once it comes to adoption within 5 years, if we finally get some government coins that are actually sound and they put the money back in the economy and they're actually growing it and not inflating it and not stealing people's wealth, be trash. So I think people need to realize that this is your game now. It's your chance to actually stand up and say, okay, let's talk about sound money. Let's talk about real economics. Let's talk about a real market. Now I'm interested in working because now there's sound money, which is completely different. It's never been, we are the children of the future, you guys. I mean, we get to see this so young. I mean, think about it in 20 years what it's going to be like. It's not even going to be a question. It's just going to be the backbone.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see what this technology and this, I guess, probably one of the first real use cases of Austrian economics and actually Austrian economics in practice, how this will play out in the future. But I guess I have a question regarding that. And I thought about that yesterday, about Bitcoin failure. What would constitute a failure of Bitcoin? Would you call Bitcoin a failure if it wouldn't arise to the level that we hope it will arise? Like, let's say it would become the world's global reserve currency and used by everyone. If it just served a niche purpose, would you say that would be a fail of Bitcoin if it was just a niche commodity?
No, because even if only one person, only one individual, only one full node is using Bitcoin, then Bitcoin is serving a purpose. And it might be a small purpose, it might be a niche purpose, but it nevertheless is a purpose. Many others, and myself included, only use Bitcoin and no longer any other fiat. Of course, not just Bitcoin, but also silver. Here, Murray Rothbard coin. Read Rothbard. And I have completely exited the fiat system, which means that for me, Bitcoin has fulfilled its purpose. I'm there. This is utopia for me, right? For a Austrian anarchist, only using Bitcoin is the utopia. You only use sound money. That's it. I can sleep well at night now. And of course, this is still a niche. And I realize that a true money is the most widely accepted medium of exchange and store of value and unit of account. And the important thing is that Bitcoin will eventually get there. But for each individual node, you can get there early. And the incentives in Bitcoin are aligned in such a way that those that enter this beauty of a sound free market economy will benefit greatly because they will acquire these Bitcoin at high risk, but at low purchasing power. And then as more people use it and as people start building upon the system and starting to make this network emerge and grow over time, over block time, the more value it will accumulate.
Yeah, right. But what do you think would be a reasonable amount of, let's say, the net total of someone's value? How much should they have in Bitcoin? I mean, you're an extreme case.
Yes.
What would you? Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, that's a really good question because I've actually pondered this thought and talked to this with Max as well. The thing about is when you have Bitcoin and you use it as your fundamental, your everyday use case, you start to realize that you can use fiat in a fiat world. Still, obviously, we obviously know that, but more so the fact that it's a way to. It's like cleaning your diet. It's cleaning your financial diet, okay? And I'm not that way because I don't get paid in it completely this way. But at the same point in case is you have to introduce this world because it's a change. It's a change for the better. And if it doesn't stand to itself up, I mean, I guess I'm weighing all my eggs on the basket that saying I hope rather than I know. The architect, the design has been given to us. You get to see when it's going to be halved, you know, in the Coinbase reward. It doesn't have a face behind it. It doesn't have an agenda behind it. It's literally given on the world's front door. Okay, here's this thing. Now you do what you can with it. Now the point in case, yes, it may not work. Okay, but I would rather wait till like 2021 to see what has happened to them by then when it halves down and there's just people using it, because the store of value is so incredible with the technology. It's so simple. It's like getting us back to the Stone Age, but in technological speaking, because it gets us all back on the same playing field in a sense. So those who are early to the party understand that it's a hard thing to wrap your mind around, but at the same time, you gotta go with something that gives you hope. And in this day and age, I personally think that majority of the people that are awake right now and are understanding what's going on realize there's no hope in money and politicians and religion. It's all owned and controlled and watered down and just made just so gross that this is kind of nice that this is finally giving this higher power a run for its money. I mean, it's putting the risk finally, like, okay, well, these people continue to use this crap, crap money, or are they going to start to adopt, knowledge? And what a time to do it! Because listen, that chart you showed earlier, where the 99% are being robbed of all their wealth and 1% has all the riches. I mean, if you can't see that as an obvious sign, and you're not aware of that, you must feel it. You must see it in the world around you. So point in case I'm going to get off my high horse, but yeah, this is a shot in the dark, and I hope everybody listening realizes that you are kind of the resistance in a sense. You are the ones that can run the nodes. You are the ones that are participating, and you are as important as everybody else. Even the big people. So.
Yes, and the question of portfolio allocation is, of course, a really tricky one. And I'm absolutely not a financial advisor. That is bullshit. Why would you give over control of your money? Why would you give over control of your finance? No. Take self-ownership over your finance. Make your own investment decisions. Don't follow leaders, especially with your money. That's stupid as hell. So make your own judgment. Don't trust, verify. That's the entire point. But a guideline that I live by is use something. Don't invest in it, but use it. And if the thing is useful, then you can allocate capital in this good. I think Bitcoin is the most useful currency that we have ever seen in human memory. It is amazing. It is the best currency that we could dream of. And it works perfectly fine. And I make several Bitcoin transactions every single day, and many, many more Lightning transactions every single day. And it is possible. It is doable. And if you can use something, well, then use it. But in Bitcoin, you first have to allocate capital inside this ecosystem. You have to build up a reputation. You have to get a UTXO. You have to get registered in the blockchain, right, with your private key. And once you have entered the system, once you have allocated capital into the system, then you can use it. Nobody's forcing you to, but this is your personal and individual choice. People ask me why I don't hold any shitcoins. Well, because I can't use them. Show me one good, one service, one product that is available on a marketplace, for true shitcoins that I cannot get with Bitcoin. Is there one use case? I don't know one, and that's why I don't have any. Same with fiat. Why would I use fiat? It's not a useful currency, so I don't use it, so I don't have any.
Yeah, man.
Well said, Max.
Speech.
Just a quick thing. I am not a follower of Alex Jones. For everybody in the chat, I do not like the guy, so don't put me in a correlation with him. But yeah, I'm serious about being the resistance. You guys, it's important. This is peer-to-peer, peer-to-peer. Me, you, me. If you want to send me some Satoshis, let it be. And same with Max, and go check out Towards Liberty. But this money it's a joke. It's a big laughing joke at us. They're laughing at our faces because you know what you do at the end of the day after you worked? You give back the money you just got earned, You literally give it right back in their pockets. It's hard to stomach that one. Take that along with your blue pill. No, but seriously, guys, this has been a really great talk. I think we could go on quite a bit, and it's scary to think about what you said in the original about the rat poison. I think it's them fearing. When I first saw that quote, and I realized obviously they're in cahoots and they all stroke each other's egos, and amongst other things, they are just gross, and no one wants to be in their control anymore. I mean, look at the world; it's falling apart. This has happened since World War II, World War I, before that, and you in Europe, you guys have such deep, rich history, and you're so connected to it, but so much is completely forgotten. And you just follow the money, and it always brings up the what's going really on, what's really going on. I think this Bitcoin price it's a story. Literally, watching the market is a story. And if it's a market that's sound, it's really nice to watch. If it's gold or US dollar, whatever you're looking at that's controlled, it's just a joke. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. I think we've reached an adoption price. Everybody in the market of finance right now is trying to get their bids in on blockchain technology. XRP has quite a few things. There's quite a few exchanges in Japan. There's quite a few lobbying groups coming up as well. So if you guys aren't aware this is happening, it's because they're not talking about it. This is really, really big. The sound is so loud, but you just got to look the right way and you start to realize that these people want to make their cut of it. Even if it's a small enough cut, they want in early so that way they can profit big.
Yeah, this was a really great discussion. I really enjoyed it. Man, I have so much more I brought with me. Interesting facts about gold allocation, what the BIS does, or how much gold the BIS has, and where it has it, and so on and so forth. But hey, let's talk about that another time.
That's the bad thing in Bitcoin. Over even the most minuscule and most trivial questions, you could discuss for hours and hours upon hours. This is crazy, and the rabbit hole goes deep.
Yeah.
And falling down it is a beautiful journey. So absolutely, we will talk again.
Agree. And so let's end with an analogy that I've heard Marty Bent say, and I really like that analogy. And he talks about that the central bankers are kind of like the Wizard of Oz. They operate behind the curtain. They make the impression that they are some kind of special things and they know exactly what's going on. But in fact, they're only charlatans hiding behind the curtain. And Bitcoin takes away that curtain. It strips them from that curtain and replaces it with a metal wall, which no one can go behind. So everything is open and transparent. And I really like that analogy to think about it.
Yeah, this is a credible talk. Thank you, Max, for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Jump from my show to this chat. This is a much heavier topic than the ABCs of Bitcoin or the fundamentals of Bitcoin. If you guys haven't checked that out, go to Rico Coin Report. I did the letter B, got a lot of information. I'm just covering the fundamentals of Bitcoin. This is still all new to me. And being next to you, Simon, as a peer has been a pleasure. This bank is the scaries of scaries. It's the one you guys don't want to know about. And thanks for bringing this to light. This is important. I think this is going to come up quite often now.
Okay, guys, hey, that was fantastic. Thank you really much for joining me here in this amazing discussion where we talked about the tweet storm of Simon Lutz and just this one hilarious response to my video. This guy is the general manager of the Bank of International Settlements, using his fingers to indicate his preference for hamburger thickness. Serious business, folks. I was cracking up.
I'm dying over here.
Right, this is hilarious. And guys, of course, we have dissected this rat, but the rat is the Bank of International Settlement. It is not the original Bitcoin rat. Bitcoin rat, we have left you alone. I'm sorry, we did not want to scare you. I'm sure we did not, because the Bitcoin sewer rat is quite a fascinating creature. But it is a much more pleasant creature than this creature from Jacko.
Somebody says Java Hut. Somebody said on the chat they could do Java the Hut. You guys are awesome in the chat. We love you guys to death. Simon, you're a pleasure. It's been great, you guys. But in serious note, Bitcoin's going to grow, and we need you guys a lot. So thank you guys.
Yeah, and one last thing for the chat. If there's anyone who understands German, who speaks a language and knows a little bit about Bitcoin, please check out blockinfo.ch. That's a website I created to help people understand the concept of Bitcoin and what it's all about. And so if you want to help out and maybe read through it and spot mistakes I made, I would be very thankful for that, because I've not had a lot of people looking over it. So that will really help. Just shoot me an email if you see anything that's wrong. Thank you.
And you know, of course, I speak German, and I can verify here what is on this. So I might tell you, but don't trust me. So verify for yourself. Learn some German, right? But honestly, this website is amazing. It is in its early beginning, right? There's, I'm sure, a bunch more content to come. But already you have accumulated a vast amount of information here. And just going to the library here, the book tips. You start off with the Bitcoin Standard, fantastic, must-read book. You start then Mastering Bitcoin, which gives you the best technical insight in Bitcoin. The Internet of Money, I recommend this every single day to newcomers. And this one I especially like that you put on, The Ethics of Money Production by Jörg Guido Hülsmann, who has been here on the World Crypto Network and who will be coming again to the World Crypto Network, guys, really soon, a date coming up. And his book on the ethics of money production is the magnum opus on monetary theory. And monetary theory as it is lived by in Bitcoin. Bitcoin works according to this book. And not just that, but also Rothbard. And that's why I'm such a huge fan of Rothbard, and that's why this show is titled Read Rothbard and Use Bitcoin. Don't just read Rothbard, also read some Hülsmann. You will really, really appreciate, I'm really sure. Guys, I have been joined by Rico Coin Report. So follow him on Twitter. And also, if I can find him right here, Simon Lutz, who had this amazing tweet storm on the Bank of International Settlement. I was really a delightful conversation. Guys, you can find out more about me here on towardsliberty.com, especially the Bitcoin library and especially the Austrian Economics library. Bunch of books up there. More coming there every single day. So, you know, building stuff up. If you want to support this channel, we have a Tallycoin. Tallycoin is getting better and better every day, guys. Now also supporting Samurai Wallet, Paynim, payment channels. Because guys, you can now load, and this was already available a couple weeks ago, your Twitter profile to this and generate your extended public key. So every time you refresh this page, a new public key is being generated and displayed that all correlate to my hardware wallet. So right now, this is a non-SegWit address because Ledger does not yet support extended public keys for SegWit and Bech32. I opened a GitHub issue to fix that. Let's hope that they'll do it soon. So you see, 1CEN is currently, I refreshed the page, and after it is refreshed, it is a complete different Bitcoin address. So this gives you a lot of privacy for donations, which is amazing. Guys, Tallycoin is fantastic. Go to DJ Booth 007 on Twitter, or 007 on Twitter, to support him. And I really want to thank you all guys for donating to this Purism fundraiser. 0.2 Bitcoins, we've cracked it because this amazing high donation of 0.085 Bitcoin by this one dude. Thank you very, very much. And I really, really appreciate it. These are quite a few Satoshis, and I really thank you for that. And of course, I hope that they will go to a good cause. Here, the Purism laptop, of course, the Purism Librem 15, amazing open source software and hardware product. And you know, if you max it out with everything, 16 gigs of RAM, 2 terabytes and 4 terabytes of SSD storage, you will end up at 6,000 grand. What? This is quite expensive. But of course, I really don't need that much. Actually, I do think that one 500 gigabyte storage would be more than enough, and 8 gigs of RAM also quite enough. And 1,800 bucks. Yes, quite a bit, but still, you know, it's a fun thing to have. But it is expensive, but I do want to support Purism because it is an amazing company. So thank you so much for your support. This is amazing. And magic internet money, right? Also check out the Wasabi wallet, now that I have this open right here. Amazing, amazing, beautiful piece of software. Guys, this was an amazing pleasure talking to you. I had lots and lots of fun talking to Rico and to Simon. That was fantastic. We will continue this discussion on Twitter and hopefully soon again on the World Crypto Network. Any last words from you, Rico? How are you doing?
Bonsoir, merci beaucoup tout le monde. You guys in the chat rock. And don't forget to like, share the link, and be kind to one another. And go check out my channel.
Yeah, I have no quote. Well, love is the answer, guys. So that's my quote. Thanks for having me. That was really a huge pleasure. Thank you very much.
Well, and Bitcoin is all about love, right? So it was a pleasure having you, Simon. Thanks for taking the time out of your day. And also Rico. And we're going to see each other on the next show. Don't know yet what that is going to be. But it will be on Friday, of course, the Bitcoin group, which is going to be amazing. And then on Tuesday, we have Adam Kokesh coming, the presidential candidate for the US presidential candidacy. And he will come onto the World Crypto Network and talk about his political strategy and how he combines his philosophy of agorism and walking the fuck away, and how he can combine that with changing the political system from within, which are, of course, two fundamentally different strategies. So I'm really curious on what Adam has to say, and it's going to be an interesting show, I guess. Guys, see you on the next one. Bye-bye.